Hello YouTube, this is John from TheCardfightCapital, and I'm going to be doing a deck profile today for a clan that just recently became a deck with the introduction of set 13. That is Nubatama, and they originally had some cards in set 1, but they didn't have enough. They only had 4 cards. There's a 0, a 1, a 2, and a 3, and honestly the only good thing out of that was the grade 1. But now with set 13 they actually have triggers and enough cards. I think they have a total of 21 cards, so just enough to make a deck. So let's jump right in on this. As the starter is going to be Stealth Beast, Kuroko. All their names are Japanese and hard to pronounce. This effect is Soul Blast 1. When an attack hits a Vanguard during the attack that this unit boosted, you may pay the cost, and if you do, choose up to 2 cards from your opponent's bind zone and put them into the drop zone. This deck focuses a lot on binding both cards in your opponent's hand and on their field. So, yeah. For the triggers, they're kind of janky because Bushiroad hates Nubatama. 4 crits. I don't run 8, and you will see why in a second. 4 draw. 4 heal. It's actually really adorable. And this is the reason why Bushiroad hates Nubatama. 4 stands. I have to run 4 stands. They only have 4 triggers, and it's 1 of each. So, although it's not ideal, it's what you have to do to run the deck. Hopefully, in another 12 sets, they'll get more support, and I will finally be able to run either 6 or 8 crits. Probably 8. Alright, for the grade 1s, this is the only carryover from the set 1. Probably one of the best boosters that they have, and what could be argued as probably one of the better boosters in the game. Stealth Dragon Dreadmaster. His effect is Limit Break or Counterblast 1. Excuse me. When an attack hits, doesn't have to hit the Vanguard. Just when it hits during the turn or during the battle that this unit boosted, you pay the cost, which is Counterblast 1. And if you have less cards than your opponent in their hand, your opponent discards a card. And in a game where hand advantage is how you win, or one of the key factors of winning, this card takes that advantage away from your opponent. And then after that, run 4 Tempest Stealth Rogues Fuuki. And this card's effect is Counterblast 1, put this unit into the soul. If you have a Nubatama Vanguard and the number of cards in your opponent's hand is 3 or less, you may pay the cost. If you do, choose a card from your opponent's, or at random from your opponent's hand, and bind it face down, and then it goes back to their hand at the end of the turn. And I guess it's supposed to work in conjunction with this, because this is a Soul Blast 1, and this puts itself into the soul. So it's just fuel for your starter, who could turn around and take the card that you just put into the drop zone, or into the bind zone, and put it into the drop zone. Then, after that, run 4 perfect guards. Pretty self-explanatory. This is Stealth Beast, Mijingakure, I think is how you pronounce it. And then, after that, just 2 of these guys. I'm actually going to have to turn one around and read it because its name is ridiculous. Stealth Rogue of the Night, Sakurafubuki. It's really long. But it's just your standard 8K vanilla. I was running 3 of this and 3 Fuukis, but I decided to go with the Fuuki because of that last game, the ability to push for that last turn push, excuse me. Alright, on to that rounds out the grade 1s at 14. Grade 2s. Start off with this. I'm going to have to turn him around to read his name too because it's really long and ridiculous. This is your 10K vanilla, and his name is Stealth Rogue of 1,000 Blades, Oborozakura. I probably did not get that right. But you're really limited on what you can run with your grade 2s because there's only 4 of them. So he's actually there's 5 because there's the one from set 1, but I don't even count that because it's pretty terrible. But he's alright. It's just standard 10k vanilla, not too terrible to run. And then this is the all-star of the grade 2 lineup. Stealth Dragon Kujikiriconga, however you pronounce that. It's long, it's Japanese, I'm not good at that. But his effect is during your turn, when your opponent's cards is placed in the bind zone, if you have a Nubatama Vanguard, he gets plus 2k. And when you're doing that last turn push for game, you can easily bind 6 cards. 6 to 7 cards. That's a lot of power that he's going to get, and that's a pretty big golem. So he's the all-star of your grade 2s. You're going to want 2 of him for your final push for game in the columns, because he attacks for a lot. And then run 3 Stealth Beast Tamahagane. I don't know who named these things. His effect is, when this unit is placed on the Vanguard or the Rear Guard, if you have a Nubatama Vanguard, choose a card from one of your opponent's rear guards, bind it face up, and at the end of the turn it goes to their hand. Not too terrible. It's a semi-reliable way to get rid of your opponent's boosters, possibly your opponent's Vanguard boosters. I know when I'm playing against one of my friends, he runs Beast Deities. It's really annoying, and it's a good way to get rid of Riot Horn. So it works really well in conjunction with this, because then you can, if you hit, that's why I say semi-reliable. When it hits, when it boosts, just get rid of that card you just bound. It's a good way to get rid of that Riot Horn when you're playing against Beast Deities. So that rounds out the grade 2s. And on to the grade 3s. Run 4 of the Break Ride Shura Stealth Dragon Kujikiriconga. I had to practice for like a week to say this name. His effect, he's the Break Ride, so limit break 4, obviously. When a Nubatama rides this unit, your opponent discards a card out of their hand and then binds a card out of their hand face down, and then it returns to their hand at the end of the turn, and your Vanguard gets plus 10,000. It's one of the more unique Break Rides, and it's really good for that last final push for game, especially if your opponent only has 5 cards in their hand. So you Break Ride, they have to lose 2 cards out of their hand, and then if you have him in your rear guard or anywhere on your field, you do that Counterblast 1, you shove them into the soul, they have 2 cards in their hand. If you have a second one, do it again, they only have 1 card, and it's good for that final push for games. It really limits what your opponent can guard with. And then his second effect, his other effects are lowered, like all the Break Rides. And when he attacks, if your opponent has 3 cards in their hand, 3 or less, he gets plus 2k. So not too reliable on that one, but you're going to use him more so just to Break Ride. I don't see you using him as your Vanguard for more than like 1 or 2 turns. And then the all-star of the grade 3, your boss monster, is Shura Stealth Beast Kabukicongo. And he's how you're really going to win. His effect is limit break 4, Counterblast 1. When he attacks, bind all of your opponent's rear guards face up, and then if your opponent has 3 cards in their bind zone, he gets plus 10k. So if you Break Ride him, your opponent already is going to have 1 card in their bind zone from your Break Ride, and then you attack with him, Counterblast 1. Late in the game, they're probably going to have a full field. So that's at least, or at most, excuse me, going to be 5 cards in their bind zone. 6 cards, actually. 6 cards in their bind zone. He's going to get plus 10,000, plus the Break Ride plus 10,000. he's going to be 31 minus a booster if you don't have a booster. So that's a pretty big column, and with the opponent's limited hand size, it's going to be really, really hard for them to guard it. He has an act ability, which is decent. It's counterblast to 1, he gets plus 2k. I've never used it. The biggest thing you can do for this deck, probably the best move you can do, is to have Kujikiriconga, Break Ride Kabukicongo, while you have 2 of these guys next to your Vanguard. So then you attack with Kabukicongo, bind things, and then depending on how many cards you bind, say you bound 5, you have 5 cards in your opponent's binds, and you've bound 5 cards this turn. This guy is going to get plus 10k, making him 19 by himself, and your opponent's going to have a very limited hand size. It's going to be really difficult for them to guard. You just bound their whole field, so they can't intercept you because they don't have any cards in their field except for their Vanguard. So with all of its shortcomings, mostly the lack of trigger support and just the number of cards they have in general, they actually have a pretty decent lineup and a pretty good last turn push for game. But that's the deck profile for Nubatama. I really enjoy it. The deck's not too loved, but I really enjoy it. It's a really cheap deck. If you're looking for a budget deck and you only have like 30 bucks, you can throw this deck together. I know this was only, at the time I got it, was only like $5, and he was only like $5 at the time I got him. It's a really budget, but prices change, of course. So, but it's still a very budget deck. Not many people I've seen have played it. I've only met one other person that wants to play it. But it's pretty good. It's able to hold its own, and when it works just right and you have the right field and you break right at the right time, it is very hard for your opponent to recover. But that's the deck profile I got for you today, and I'll see you next time, guys.